my name is Katie Fink. I am the library director here at Hathaway Brown School in Shaker, Ohio. And we are a all-girls school with about 800 students. So we are smaller, but we have had the opportunity to genrefy. Kind of in thanks to the pandemic, we were forced to move some of our collection. And it felt like a perfect time to, if we're moving everything, we might as well reorganize everything. So that's pretty much why we jumped into it. So I'm going to share my screen. So genrefying your Koha collection, all the do's and don'ts. Like I said, we are a small library and we started this about the summer of 2019. So about 2 years ago now. And again, I'm Katie Fink, and this picture of me, I realize you can't see my face in this picture, so good thing we are doing a Zoom call here so you can see who I am. But this kind of encompasses what we did last year. We did a lot of mobile book carts, a lot of giving books out in bags so that our students could still get them even though we were in the pandemic, and following some COVID rules. So we have 2 Koha libraries here on campus that have multiple shelving locations across all 3 of our buildings. So we have a primary library that serves our early childhood through 4th grade. We have a juvenile fiction collection that serves our 5th through 8th graders, and that's housed in the middle school. And then we have our upper school collection, which we call the Geisel Library and Learning Commons, which shelves young adult fiction books as well as nonfiction for 5th through 12th graders. At the time that we started this project, we had 3 librarians serving all those libraries. And we have about 800 students as well as 200 adults that our library serves. So what is the problem? The problem that we faced was that our students in the middle school do not have any set time for library, as well as in the upper school. Our library is used as a common space. There are no classes that take place in the library. So students have to use their own free time to come over to the library and pick out something that they might be interested in. The library building itself location is actually on the opposite side of campus from our middle school students as well. And for 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, they have to trudge through the upper school students to get to our library, which for them can be overwhelming at times. We also are limited in our librarian availability. So all of our librarians teach classes, not within the library itself, but within the classrooms. And we also have classroom responsibilities like covering study hall that we have to schedule in between time. So we might not be in the library when there are students in the library. And we also cover each other's libraries as well. So I'm normally in the upper school library, but I might be down in the primary school library. My coworker might be in my library, or she might be in the middle school library at any time. Although we are specialized to upper school, young adult fiction, lower school, juvenile fiction type backgrounds.
Hey, Katie.
Yeah.
It looks like the Zoom controls are kind of covering some of your picture. Can you like squish that one maybe? Yeah, and then drag it up to the top a little. Okay.
Yep.
We can see your presentation better that way. Now, at least. Now it looks
now
like
you can. Yeah, give me 1 second.
That's the chat.
Pop that back. Okay.
Okay,
all right.
That's better. Sorry. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So we had this problem that we had to solve. And we started out with some goals. What did we want to get done? And I love the layout of SMART goals. So having something specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. So specifically, we wanted a collection that was easily managed by our students. We wanted them to be able to come in and independently find what they were looking for quickly. We wanted that time to look like about 5 minutes. Our students coming from the middle school were checking out of their study halls and had to come all the way over to our building, look for the book that they were, or find the book that they were looking for, and then make it all the way back to their class within a reasonable amount of time. So that might mean 5 minutes of looking. Then achievable. So for us, we have about 46,000 books in our collection between our 3 libraries. It was not plausible for us to fix all 46,000 of them. So achievably, I could do and look at the middle school fiction section, the juvenile fiction section, which is only about 3,000 books itself. And that was something I could handle. Relevant wise, students I found were either avoiding coming to the library, saying that they would rather get books from their classroom or books from home, or just not read at all because it was so hard to find something in the library for them. And this was an idea that we started in August of 2019. We were told that in throughout the year that we were going to be moving our juvenile fiction collection anyway to accommodate for some construction we were having on campus. So we knew our deadline needed to be the end of August 2020. So we had about a year to do this process. And the solution we came up with was genrefying. To genrefy our collection was to physically reorganize and introduce genre stickers and breaking those big groups of books that we had into smaller chunks so our students could easily visually see where those different genres were. We thought that genrefying would empower our patrons to discover new books and genres that they already are likely looking for and enjoy. And it allowed any supervising teachers that were coming into the spaces to be able to help students. And that was really, really important because we have a lot of volunteers, a lot of teachers that do come into our space that might not know the collection while a librarian is out teaching their own classes. The materials that we decided that we needed as we went through this process were genre labels. We got those from Demco. We found that Demco didn't have all the genre labels that we were looking to use. So we did make some custom labels and label protectors. Those, the labels tend to not be as sticky as we wanted them to be. So covering them with a protector was important. We also decided that as we were going through and genrefying, we were also going to weed. So any of the books that applied to the musty weeding categories, we were going to pull out and we were just going to weed as we go. So this was what our timeline looked like. In winter of 2019, we sent out a survey to all the students to determine which genres that they were looking for. This was really important because they would tend to ask, where are your diary books? Where are the books that are going to make me laugh out loud? That's what they were looking for. They weren't necessarily looking for some of the genres that us adults assumed that they would be looking for. I had to identify how the genres were going to look in our Koha library software, both to staff and to students who use the OPAC. There had to be a hierarchy for genres. This meant that if we were only doing a scary genre, okay, well, what applies for scary? Do ghosts go into scary? Does, dragons go into scary, or is that fantasy? So we looked at that hierarchy as well. And then we pulled all of our juvenile fiction books with a report that we created in Koha that specifically had our subjects as part of that report. And we changed all the Koha collection codes on each item. So that was what we decided we were going to change in Koha was the collection codes. Then in spring 2020, as well as summer 2020, we did the physical work. All of that was organizing, labeling. We did apply for some grant money within our school. We did not receive that grant money, but it was also a really good thing to just think about what was out there for us to access. So that is what our timeline looked like. I will tell you that I created this before we had any COVID restrictions, before we were pulled out of school. So I just finished this, I'd say maybe spring of 2020, but all of the books were moved by the end of by spring 2021, and all of the books were moved by summer 2020. So this is what our survey looked like. We sent this out. It's just a Google form. We allowed students to volunteer their answers. They were not forced to answer, but if they did fill out the survey, they were put into a drawing for a gift card. We have a cafe here on campus, and so I had some cafe gift cards that they could receive if they filled out the survey. I did this because students who are going to visit the library are going to have an opinion. Students who are maybe more reluctant readers or really don't care might have an opinion, but it might not be informed. So this is why this was voluntary. So out of our almost 300, closer to 200 middle school students, we had about 55 of them respond. And as you can see, most of them wanted a change. So that blue section is no change. We like how the books are organized. We can find things easily. Most of them wanted something to change. And the two options that we gave them were to either add stickers. The books would be organized in alphabetical order by author's last name with stickers to show what genre they were in. So they would stay in the same order, just would be labeled. Or would you prefer that we rearrange the sections completely so that you can walk up to a shelf and it would be a specific genre? Now, even though our students, mostly about 50% of them said, just add stickers, leave them in alphabetical order, we did end up going with rearranging the sections because we were moving our collection entirely anyway. And it made sense in the new space that it was going to be in different smaller sections. I also asked them what stickers they would prefer to see on the spine of the book. So these were different genres. Some of them were, maybe you wouldn't consider it a genre, but things that they had always asked me for, subjects that they were looking for. And they were able to choose as many as they would be interested in. As you can see, a lot of our students were looking for adventure books, which they deemed were different than dystopian books or even fantasy books. And I did allow them, if they didn't see a genre on here that they were interested in, to suggest genres as well. There weren't many suggestions. So these were the genre groups that we determined with our collection would be appropriate. We decided that we were going with adventure, animal fantasy, diaries, fantasy, graphic novels, historical fiction, humor, mystery, novel and verse, historical fiction, or realistic fiction, relationships, scary and supernatural, and science fiction. Most of the other ones just students weren't looking for, or they could be lumped together with another type of genre. So within Koha, we decided we were going to use the collection code to specify which genre collection these books were in. So I specified that these were all juvenile fiction. So all of our collection codes started with that J, JF. If you see graphic, we put both fiction and nonfiction in this section because that's normally what our students are looking for. They look for graphic first before they look for what subject it is. And then I just used the initials of each of these sections in best the way that it seemed to fit and make sense. So this is something that is obviously only seen by our staff. It works pretty well. I think having historical fiction and humor being so close together in initials is a little bit confusing, as well as when we went through the process, scary and science fiction were also confusing. We did mess up some of those and have to go back. So if I did this again, I would change those to some more specific and very different codes. but this is what we ended up with. The next thing that we had to come up with was a hierarchy. So this was our hierarchy. So we asked these questions. So first of all, is the book a graphic book? Is it set up like a comic book? Is there a, does the subject on the catalog describe it as graphic, or is it classified as a 741.5 in the Dewey Decimal System? Automatically, that went into our graphic genre. The second question was, is it a diary format? Does the text follow a journal or dated letters? That automatically, regardless of what other subject it was about, went into diaries. Is it in verse? It went into novel in verse. Is it humorous? Into humor. Is it science fiction, sci-fi, or dystopian? Is there time travel or future predictions of life? That automatically became science fiction. And as you can see, as we were weeding out where each book went, if it went into one of these first genres, it did not end up in a secondary genre. So if a book was humorous, but it included magic or it included dragons, it still ended up in humor because that question came first. So then we went through and it was, is it fantasy? Is it scary or supernatural? Is it mystery? Is it historical? Is it adventurous? Is it about relationships or crushes, or is it realistic? And the reason that we went through and made adventure and relationships one of the last was that those were least important to our students. They really wanted to see diaries, verse, humorous, those things coming first when they were searching. So in Koha, we created a report that selected a bunch of different things. Obviously, you can see that here: call number, branch, item type, title, location, barcode, etc. But the most important thing that it pulled was the metadata that was in this 650A field for all of our 650A fields. And we were able to pull that into Excel and then search through our subject fields to quickly identify genres. This was really helpful to organizing all the books very quickly digitally for us to go through and say, okay, we only have about 10 books that might be, fantasy. That's not true, but it was easily accessible to us to see what genres would work and which genres would not work. And this is the, that's the report SQL that we used. And this is what it looked like. So we would pull it into Excel and I just filtered the report. So I used the filter function, filter by contains, and I would type in what it might contain. So if I could type in mystery, it automatically went into the mystery genre. And I started with that hierarchy. So I did start with question number 1. So I would type in graphic and I could see, okay, I'm going to pull all of these out and change their collection codes to our graphic novel collection. This was easily done with batch edit. I could go in, change the, or pull the item numbers and then change that collection code within batch edit on Koha. So this is what our collection or OPAC looks like. If you were to look for a book, so a student can type in what they're looking for, say it's dragons, and it will pull up and show them the results for all the libraries. Now they can go over to the collection section and just click on JF Fantasy, and they can pull any book that's in the middle school collection for fantasy that has dragons in it, and they can see it right there. Now, if a student wanted to go in and just look at our fantasy collection, they could do that as well. They go to advanced search and then collection. and they can choose any of our genre collections here. So they could go to juvenile fiction fantasy and just search, and that will pull all the books that we have in the juvenile fiction fantasy section. So when they go into a record, it shows them the collection and they can see where exactly that book is or what genre that book is. And our students have found this really, really helpful to be able to not only go into the catalog and say instantly, oh, this is a genre that I might be interested in, but they're able to go to the shelf and see all of the books that they might be interested in. This is what our collection, this is what our collection looks like now.
Hi HB, welcome to the new location of the Juvenile Fiction Collection. You will be able to search for your favorite genres outside the 6th grade neighborhood, the 7th grade neighborhood, and the world language room. If you find a book that interests you, use the code on the shelf to scan into the library catalog and look up the title and the description of the book. If you decide it's a book you would like to read, go ahead and take it off the shelf. Once you've made a selection, it's time for you to check out the book. Go over to...
So I'm not going to walk you through our self-checkout with the middle school just right now, but that is what our collection looks like now. All of the books have labels on them, and they are on those individual shelves within our middle school. So there's about a 2-section shelf in every hallway of the middle school. And we have an atrium here in our school. So it is very central to where the middle school is, and all students have access, which I really like. I also separated the books on 2 floors. So within our atrium, there are 2 or 3 different floors, and these signs over here on the side tell you exactly which floor each genre collection is on. So students can very easily find their way, find what they're looking for. I feel like I went through this very quickly. So I would love to answer any questions, have any discussion you might have about genrefying your collection. I also am available if you want to email me, or even if you want to just go to our catalog and see what we've done there with our genres. I'm happy to answer anything that you might be interested in asking about.
Thanks, Katie. That was great. We did have one question in the YouTube chat about availability of the report in your slides, and we let them know that we are sharing the slides afterwards. I'm hoping to get all the slides up that I have today at the end of the day. So check for those tomorrow. You should have that.
Great, yeah.
If there are other questions, feel free to put those in the chat in YouTube. If there are questions from the room, it would be good if you could come up to the computer at the front of the room and unmute that and talk to us there. That way we can hear you. And there is a little bit of a lag on the YouTube chat. So if we'll give it a minute or two. We have Suzanne asking, how about books that easily fit more than one genre, like diaries and humor?
So I made the decision with my students with that survey and kind of just talking to them, what would they look for first? And the students decided that they absolutely would look for a diary first before they would look for a humor book. So if it fit into that, I would go back to that hierarchy that I was talking about. And we literally went in this order. So if it was a diary first, then they went into the diary genre first. I hope that makes sense.
I have a question. Have you considered doing something similar with your nonfiction, or are you just sticking with Dewey?
I have been adventuring into researching more about doing it with our nonfiction. Because of the way our library is set up right now, it would be a huge project. it would be a huge project for us. And we only have 2 librarians here, and it would be astronomical at this point. I'm like looking out my window to see my library right now. I would love to do something with our nonfiction to make it in a way that is much easier for our students to search through, both visually and on the OPAC. And it just isn't something that we have been able to do yet. My next goal is to actually genrefy our young adult collection. So we only did the juvenile fiction collection that our 5th through 8th graders have access to. So our young adult section is still alphabetical, and any of our children's fiction is also alphabetical, and that's in a completely different library system. So those are our next 2 before we tackle the nonfiction.
I see Georgette in chat just making a comment that they did their nonfiction and their adult fiction, and it was a big project. So
I can imagine.
I see some other people wandering up to the computer in the room, so we'll see if somebody pops in here.
We just tried. No, oh, there we go. Hi.
Hi.
I have a question. Given all this information, once you organize it, was there an area in your juvenile fiction that you thought you had a lot of material in and realized you didn't? Or, yeah, okay.
Yes. So our students love humor books, and I specifically had to order way more. I found that was something that they were constantly looking for, constantly asking for. And we really only had maybe 25 books out of our 3,000 that fit into that category. So that was something that I ordered. I said I was dedicated to having that be one of our genres that we highlighted. So I did order for that. One that I found that we had way too many was animal fantasy. So our students specifically wanted animal fantasy versus fantasy, being that animals speak to each other or are understood by humans. So you're thinking like warriors or Guardians of Gulan, those types of books. And so they specifically wanted those, but we really only had warrior books. So I found that I had to order different types of animal fantasies than just the one, series. I did weed more from our historical fiction than I expected, which I was surprised. We had a ton. I think I could have my own little library, actually pretty big library, all about just like World War II historical fiction in middle grade. So that was something that we weeded a lot of. So yeah.
From the YouTube chat, someone is asking if you could show the slide that had the collection codes again.
Yes.
And also show how you catalog them and how they show up in the database.
Yeah. Okay, so these were our collection codes. Like I said, they were all juvenile fiction, so that's why they all start with JF. And I went through and decided that some of them worked really well and some of them did not. Like I said, the historical fiction and humor are too close together, too similar, and scary and science fiction are too similar. So I'd highly recommend making these different if you go through this process. And I can show you exactly where you would change that. So let me actually pull up, this is my catalog. So I'm hoping, can you see, did it change to my catalog now? Yes.
Yeah, I'm seeing Emily Winsnap right now.
Yes. So this is my catalog. So in the database, it does look like this. It's here in collection. So you do need to know to look for it there. But also if I go into my, not that one, go back. Okay. I hit all of my tabs. Give me a second. Okay. So if I go into my staff client here, we really just went to the batch edit option. Let's see if I can see where. Go to tools, batch item modification. And I would take those items that I would fill in from my Excel spreadsheet, which let me pull that up too. So say this is the report that you get, and I can filter by specific subjects, things that it contains. So I filtered it by dragons for this one.
We're not seeing the Excel, but that's okay.
So I'm going to pull out my item numbers and then jump back over to my batch edit. So excuse me, my barcodes, not my item numbers. So say these were the items that I wanted to change the collection code for. Could very easily within Koha go in, copy those in, say I want to change them, and go through and change these to collection code. And then I have all of my collection codes here. Now, the way that you add the collection codes within your system is to actually go into administration, authorized values, and collection codes are here. Here are your collections. And you can go in and add them here. You're going to add a new authorized value to collection code. And you can see all of the collection codes that we have. I have started doing the YA. And so those are in here as well. And I can specify which library it goes to. So right now, our two Koha libraries are split up between our prime collection and our middle school, upper school collection. So these only show up in that middle school, upper school collection for cataloging. So then once I do that, and I'm not going to change these because I just grabbed a random bunch, but when you do that, it will then change this collection code here, and it'll tell you exactly what you've changed it to. Does that answer the question?
I'll have to let the stream catch up to see if we get an answer. Kelly did comment in the YouTube chat saying that this could have a great follow-up presentation after you've got some circulation data and stats to kind of really see how this has impacted your circulation.
Yeah, absolutely. So it has already, I can tell you that our circulation doubled in our middle school after implementing this. I do want to dig into what sections they really, which genres they were really interested in and have really taken from. But I do know that it has doubled since we have done this. Now, some of that could be that we were across the building, right, previously, and now the middle school collection is in the middle school, so they don't actually have to trudge through high schoolers to get here. But they do seem to be much happier looking for books than they were previously. Yeah, question.
Brief follow-up to the demonstration of what it looks like in your catalog. Would you happen to be able to show us what your labeling looks like what the spine of one of your books looks like?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So I'm gonna stop sharing this so you can see me. So this is actually what it's set up to look like. This book needs to be get a Mylar cover on it, but this is what the spine of all of our books look like. So we have the spine label, our collection, as well as the collection genre label here. And they are all set up this way. So they're all in this order, and all different colors for our labels as well.
Back to the YouTube chat. We did get confirmation that you answered that other question, so that's good. And then we have a new question from Marcy asking, when you order new items for your collection, are you able to determine from your vendors what collection the item will go in, or do you have to kind of review it and decide after the item arrives?
Most of the time it's pretty easy to tell we order from Ingram, and it's pretty self-explanatory when we order what collection it goes into. There are times when I know I'm ordering a bunch of, like when I ordered all humor, I just made sure that that whole order was just humor. I knew it was coming, and I had the stickers ready to go for that one. Oftentimes, if I am ordering a mixture of books, I don't worry about it until they come in. I have to scan them into our system anyway. So when their record comes up, I look at it, I can figure out what genre it goes in based on the subject headings within Koha, and I add the label and I change the collection code right then and there. It's a pretty simple process. It's a little bit time consuming, but I'm doing the processing anyways of scanning into the book, so it's really just one more step.
Okay, I'm not seeing anything else come through on the chat. Any other questions from the room out there or the chat? There's one. Do you type your own labels, or do you use a special program for typing the labels?
We just use the system that's within Koha already. That label creator option. So we've used that. If you're talking about the labels that are our genre labels, I ordered most of them from Demco, and then some of them I just did custom labels that I ordered. And those were from, let me pull up the specifics. Those were from onlinelabels.com. Now the Demco labels and the online labels are actually different sizes. They're slightly different. You really can't tell. Our students don't mind it.
So for the custom labels, you can send them whatever artwork you want and they'll print it out for you.
Yes, and that
Nice.
seemed much easier than taking the time to print it for ourselves.
All right, don't see anything else yet. Yeah, we're kind of in the process of, I'm in a consortium, so we've got a whole bunch of different libraries, and some of my libraries are starting the process of genrefying, and we're trying to come up with kind of like a consortium-wide plan where we can create some consistency across the board. So this is very helpful to kind of see what other people are doing, and I'll even down to just how you're labeling things. It's kind of, and it's really great how you can use this information for collection development to see what you need to order. So
yeah, it is nice in that way. And the other thing I would say is that we did it specific to our students and what they were interested in. When I'm looking to do our young adult collection, there are some sections that some genres that we did in the middle school that we would not do in the upper school, just because the students aren't interested in it. So when we sent the survey to our upper school students just recently, they're still sending it back in, but they aren't looking for things like diaries. They aren't really looking for animal fantasy. So things like that, they would look in the other specific genres, the umbrella ones. So
for clarification, when you're saying diaries, is that going to be more like Diary of a Wimpy Kid, that sort of thing, or like Dear America, or both, I guess?
So I actually consider Diary of a Wimpy Kid, our students actually look for that in graphic novels. That's always where they would end up going. They were like, wait, it's drawn. Why isn't it in, graphic novels? So we actually moved all of our Diary of a Wimpy Kids or Dork Diaries into that section first. And then diaries really is going to be anything that's like Dear America or anything that has a timestamp or entries type writing, as well as even some of our we have some books that are in like texting format or email format. Those are going to go into that section as well.
Okay, cool. All right, I've exhausted my questions as well.
Well, I appreciate all of your time. And like I said, I'm happy to connect with anybody who has any more questions. And thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you for presenting. And as I said, we will get the recording up and the slides up hopefully later this evening. So they'll be available tomorrow. And of course, if you have more questions, feel free to reach out to Katie.
Thank you.